Democrats come up short in attempts to override the governor's vetoes, how unions and children are impacted by the decisions. Plus, more of your neighbors are leaving the land of Lincoln, what that means in dollars and cents. And State Senator Darren LaHood goes on the record about his race for Congress, what he has to say about the road to Washington.
Now, from your local election headquarters, this is Central Illinois on the Record.
Welcome to Central Illinois on the Record. I'm Paul Cicchini. It was back to work this week for some state lawmakers. While the budget impasse continued, House Democrats attempted to override some of Governor Rauner's vetoes. Capitol Bureau Chief Matt Porter says the man considered the most powerful lawmaker in Illinois may have lost some of that luster, but some of the blame is being placed on a Chicago Democrat.
Had Mr. Duncan been here, there would have been 71 Democrats voting to override.
Well, Speaker Michael Madigan looked and sounded like a coach who lost a big game. The most powerful man in the legislature admitted he lost track of one of his members.
He's like all members of the General Assembly. He makes his own decisions.
Without 71 members present, 2 other Democrats chose not to vote for the bill. Madigan said the failure means the state is no longer protected from a shutdown.
The enactment of this particular bill would have provided no strikes, no lockouts. There would have been labor peace.
Debate went on for almost 2 hours.
We need to stand firm and support hard-working men and women all across this state. We need to stand firm and honor the true meaning of Labor Day.
Republicans said the bill would rob the governor of his executive authority to negotiate a fair deal.
This is one of maybe 3 or 4 devices that you have in place to make sure that we just have a governor who shows up and does absolutely nothing.
After successful deals with the Teamsters, lawmakers who voted against the override believe in the governor.
Each side, I'm hopeful, will negotiate in good faith, so it'll come out for the best of the union and, importantly, the taxpayers.
The governor thanked lawmakers, calling it a victory for taxpayers. The House is back in session September 24th. The Senate returns on Wednesday. For 2 months, new parents have had a nearly impossible chance at receiving help from the state to cover child care. Tensions boiled over Wednesday in some of the most heated debate this summer. It's centered around a requirement for all single applicants to seek child support, potentially forcing some victims to confront their abuser. Experts say exemptions for victims are common in other assistance programs. The new restrictions are estimated to save the state almost $50 million. The bill was postponed after it came up 1 vote short of overriding the governor's veto, but it could be called again when the House returns. A new report is confirming what some have been saying for years. More people are moving out of Illinois than moving in. New numbers from the Internal Revenue Service show the land of Lincoln is losing thousands of people. It's also out more than $3 billion in income generated by those leaving. Illinois lost more than it gained to 46 states, including all of its neighbors. 2 members of the state parole board are under investigation for lying. Adam Monreal served as chair of the parole board in 2011, earning over $90,000. In a bankruptcy filing that year, he listed his own income far below that at $38,000. Eric Gregg also filed for bankruptcy. He claimed $48,000 from an alternate source of income, which board members are not allowed. Both are still members of the board as this investigation continues. Leaving your 14-year-old home alone could land you in jail, but a new bill is looking to change that. Under Illinois law, if you leave a 13-year-old child or younger at home alone, that's defined as neglect. The proposal would change the age from 14 and older to 10 and up. Parents we spoke to say it depends on the child.
10, I think, would be a little bit too young. We usually go at 12, the age, to let them stay by themselves, but I would see maybe going down to 12 from 14, but not to 10. That just seems like too big of a jump.
The bill was introduced last month. Illinois has one of the highest ages in the country to leave kids home alone. For example, Kansas allows parents to leave their children at home at age 6. And a new law in the books in Illinois is aimed at saving lives. It would provide immunity to people who call 911 for help with overdoses of drugs or alcohol. Now, advocates say the law could cut down overdoses, but when it comes to heroin, the issue is more long-term.
Somebody calls, somebody's overdosing, and they can get them the help they need, they're going to save their life. If they can't get access to treatment, then long-term, we're not solving the problem.
House says it takes time and resources to treat addicts. Governor Rauner recently vetoed a bill that would fight heroin addiction and overdoses. When it comes to the lottery, you can't win if you don't play. In the state of Illinois, if you've won, the state can't pay. There are no signs and no messages to players. There won't be big payouts anytime soon. Winning tickets over $25,000 have quietly been on hold since the start of the new fiscal year, July 1st. Latest punishment inflicted on Illinoisans by an historic budget stalemate. A $400,000 jackpot turned big dreams into broken ones for a retiree in Bourbonnais.
I don't think it's fair. It was a happy day. My husband was really excited. I thought he was going to have a heart attack.
People are playing the lottery, shouldn't have to worry about what the budget's about. This is something that we're trying to, get rich, hopefully.
Other states have run into this budget problem, but never broke the promise to winners. You win, we pay. Governor Rauner, Speaker Madigan, the state comptroller, even the attorney general all say basically the same thing. Until someone goes to court, there's nothing they can do. Women and politics still ahead. The On the Record panel takes on gender in the race for the White House. And there's less than 1 week until voters pick a congressman in the 18th district. We're sitting down with the Republican running in the race when we come back. Welcome back. Joining the program again, State Senator Darren LaHood, also the Republican running in the 18th Congressional District general election, which is now just 3 days away, Thursday, September 10th.
Great to be with you, Paul.
Thanks for coming back again. So talk about this last stretch. I mean, you have just a few more days before, obviously early voting is underway, but you have just a few more days to get out the word if that's necessary. But you've been out there. People know about your work, obviously, in Springfield, and now you're looking to take a seat in Washington.
Yeah, well, it's an important election, and just encouraging people to get out and vote. It's an odd time to have an election. It's on a Thursday, which people aren't used to voting, September 10th, but it's a very important election. This district's gone without a voting representative for almost 5.5 months. It's the only seat in the country that doesn't have a current member of Congress in it, and so we've been out there working very hard, not taking anything for granted, out there earning every vote, and talking about our message of fiscal responsibility, reining in the federal government, less and smaller government, tackling the problems of illegal immigration, getting our economy going again, term limits. Those are all things that I feel strongly about, and we've been talking about.
Now, if you end up in Washington, D.C., you're going to go in and lawmakers are going to be in the midst of another budget battle, not something that you're unfamiliar with given what's been happening in Springfield. But how do you make sure that budget fight stays on track and that what is necessary is funded?
Yeah, well, I think there's real challenges at the federal level, as we have in Springfield, but people in this district, they want somebody that's going to go there and represent their values. How do we turn around an $18 trillion debt? everything we look at in the federal government, we need to look at, in terms of how do we make it more effective, efficient, and accountable to taxpayers, and how do we reverse that trend to get that $18 trillion debt to come down? How do we grow the private sector? From my perspective, the government shouldn't be in the business of creating jobs, but we should create the atmosphere for the private sector to flourish. That's small, medium, and large businesses, whether that's Caterpillar or State Farm or John Deere. But that's what the government should be focusing on, is getting the economy going. There's a lot of uncertainty right now, Paul. Are we going backwards or are we going forwards? And I think representing the values of people in this district, having a strong voice, as I've had in Springfield, I look forward, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, to doing that.
All right, last question. Obviously, we had somewhat of a flashy congressman in Aaron Shaka, popular on social media. What can people expect from Congressman Darren LaHood?
Well, again, if I'm fortunate enough to get elected, I've had a track record in the state Senate. I just tell you, my wife and I were raising our 3 children in Dunlap. This is our home. We love Central Illinois. In the 4.5 years I've been in Springfield, I've spent one night in Springfield. I drive an hour and 20 minutes every morning and every night that I'm in session to be home with my family. I think it's important to stay grounded in the district. Remember who you work for. Hiring good staff around you is important. And then following rules and the ethics laws that are in place. One of the first things I did when I got in this race is hire a federal election law lawyer, make sure that we're doing everything correctly. And I think good staff is important, and remembering who you work for, the taxpayers, that's important. Coming back every weekend, having town hall meetings, showing up at events, being grounded to your district, I think is very important.
All right, thank you very much. State Senator Darren LaHood, running for the 18th District congressional seat. The election is on Thursday, September 10th. Still ahead, redistricting in Illinois, the group looking to remove partisan politics and make the process more transparent.
You're watching Central Illinois on the record.
All right, joining me now, Cindy Canary, the Executive Director of the Independent Maps Campaign. So first, thank you for joining the show, but what is the Independent Maps Campaign?
The Independent Maps Campaign is a nonpartisan, nonprofit effort to put an initiative on the ballot to change the way we draw state legislative districts.
And that is interesting because, one, it affects both parties,
Yes.
but two, you want to do it in an independent way because the idea is to do it fairly. And in a lot of states, that's not the case.
Well, including our own. Right now, the legislature draws the map. So our legislators draw their own districts and, in effect, are picking their voters rather than us picking our representatives. And so this notion is that we would have an 11-member public commission who would have to conduct all proceedings in public and apply the Voting Rights Act, look at communities of interest, geographic communities, and put together a map in a way that allows the public to comment.
And you were in Peoria last week and had an event with the League of Women Voters. How did that go, and did it meet your expectations?
It was fantastic. Central Illinois and Peoria in particular have been just fabulous behind this effort. At the event, the League presented us with over 1,000 signatures that they'd obtained at fairs during the summer, at grocery stores, and it's really good momentum, and I think we're going to see thousands more signatures coming from this area.
And you're on the road to 600,000, right? And you're closing in on almost halfway there.
Yeah, we're about 275. We're doing great. We need about 292,000 valid signatures. But because of the validity questions, people moving around, we're going to try to get 600,000, and so we are just completely safe.
A little room.
A lot of room, yeah.
So what's next on the road to those 600,000 signatures, and where are you going to be going with this effort and the group itself?
Well, we're going all around the state. We're collecting the signatures. We'll be doing that over the next couple of months. I hope people will go to our website, which is mapamendment.org, get petitions, send them back to us. We're validating them as we go along, and just hoping to get that count. We'll actually submit the petitions next spring, and it's to get on the November 2016 ballot. But it's a lot of signatures to collect, so we need everybody's help.
All right, well, we'll keep an eye on it, and I'm sure we'll speak again. So thank you very much for joining us. Cindy Canary from the Independent Maps campaign. Straight ahead, we go on the record with our expert panel about gender and politics and the impact it's having on the presidential race. Plus, another round of Hillary Clinton's emails are out. A look at how many contained classified information.
You're watching Central Illinois on the Record.
Welcome back. Joining the On the Record panel this week from Illinois State University, Dr. Julie Weber, and from Bradley University, Ryan Reed. Thank you both for joining me.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
And this week I wanted to talk about gender and politics because we had kind of a big announcement that CNN was going to change its debate rules. That would mean Carly Fiorina would be on the stage, and of course Hillary Clinton, we've talked about a lot on this program, and she's been in the press, of course, for a number of reasons. But also Donald Trump and some of the things that he has said about women in politics. And Julie, I want to start with you because we were talking before we came on air about Donald Trump and whether he's kind of paving a new path for Republican presidential candidates. You don't think so?
No, I don't. I think that he's doing Donald Trump's brand, and I think people will see it that way. They'll see him just as the host of The Apprentice, and you know, it's on TV. It plays very well, so I think it'll make the other candidates look better, more presidential.
So what do you have to say to his polling numbers so far? I mean, because he's very popular right now, and he'll tell you that.
Yeah, he is. He is. I think it's early, and I think he's already slipping.
Okay, and well, we're seeing it in Iowa. He's tied in Iowa in some of the most recent polls with Ben Carson. But he's a guy who we were also talking about, Ryan. He doesn't need a billionaire backer. He's his own billionaire backer, so he can stay in the race almost as long as he wants.
Right. Even a loss of support won't really affect him much in terms of whether he can continue because he doesn't need donations coming in, right? And he likes to tell people that too. He likes to remind them in all of what's become a stump speech staple that he's got the money. He turns down money all the time. He turns down $1 million, $5 million. This is part of the speech now.
Yeah. So when it comes to that, though, I mean, there is that discussion that we've had in the media too about the Trump effect, and he says something crazy, and then Jeb Bush or Scott Walker says something that they get panned for in the media, but that Donald Trump seems impervious to. So how does that political conversation be elevated above what Donald Trump is bringing to the table right now?
Well, and I think we were talking about this before we came on, that he doesn't Trump doesn't have too many policy positions, so they're going to have to present themselves as a party with policies.
Yeah.
And I think that they'll come forward with that eventually, and I think that will, you know, some solid proposals that people can really hang on to and think about when they're thinking about who they want to vote for. And Trump doesn't present that. He sort of presents his opinion about what he'd do in this or that negotiation.
Yeah, it's a lot of platitudes. Make America great again. We wouldn't be talking about immigration if I didn't bring it up, but he's not really talking about substance.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think we also see that you were asking why do the other candidates get panned when they say things and he doesn't. Well, we have to think about who's doing the panning. It's really the Beltway media that decides that there's a different standard perhaps for what Jeb Bush says versus what Donald Trump says. And I think that plays to the media's expectations that Donald Trump is going to insult people. He's going to say offensive, provocative things. But someone like a Jeb Bush, who has been a lifelong politician, we expect him to compose himself differently and to speak differently. And so I think that's why it makes waves in the media differently than when Trump does it.
And to bring the gender in politics more into the discussion, when we look at Hillary Clinton, she polls very well against Donald Trump, and Democrats are doing so in general, largely because of the things that Donald Trump has said about women in politics. So why is that not having necessarily the same effect for Carly Fiorina? I mean, we're going to see her on the stage, which is big, but a lot of people are attributing that to her performance in the Fox News debate. But she's going to be on the stage again, but I don't think anybody necessarily ties her recent success to Donald Trump.
No, I don't think they do. She has a disadvantage, I think, vis-a-vis Trump and other candidates, in that she's suffering from this thing they call negative gender distinctions, which is, while she's in the media talking about sexism. She doesn't have that opportunity to use free media to talk about her policies. And so that gives the other male candidates an advantage over her. They're out talking about policies, and she's talking about whether or not changing the CNN debate was affirmative action, or whether or not it's there's sexist comments in the media. So she ends up wasting her time basically talking about that stuff. So I think that he has an advantage over her, and the other candidates do as well.
So what about for Hillary Clinton? Because we don't often have to hear about the fact that she is a woman. Mm-hmm. She is just a Democratic frontrunner for president.
Well, we may get to hear about that if she receives the nomination and is then actually running in the general election against Donald Trump, for example. I'm going to guess that gender is going to become a factor, and maybe with some of the other candidates on the Republican side. It'll be very interesting if Carly Fiorina and Hillary Clinton are the ones running against each other, but we don't have crystal balls. We're just political scientists. So. But then we would see what the gender dynamics would be at all. But I would say that right now the reason why, first of all, Hillary Clinton other than the investigations into her email servers when she was Secretary of State, we're really not hearing as much about her, whereas it's very hard for me to open my Google News feed without a Donald Trump headline at the top of it.
Right. And do you think that just in general, I think Hillary Clinton has been in the news for 25 years, more or less, and Carly Fiorina, for the most part, is not. I mean, most people probably didn't know Carly Fiorina very well unless they paid attention to Senate race several years ago.
Yeah, I think that Hillary Clinton is smart staying out of the media right now.
Yeah.
I do, because I think it might drag her. Her numbers are falling, but I think they may come back up. And I think it's smart for her. As I said, the negative gender distinctions is a problem for women candidates. So I think if she lays low, she might be able to pick up her numbers later. But I think she's trying to stay away from that. If you'll notice, last time she ran, until the end, she ran as a candidate. She didn't run as a woman candidate.
Right. All right.
So,
well, it'll be interesting to see how that progresses, of course, through the rest of the fall and into the winter primaries. So thank you very much, both of you, for joining us. Ryan Reed from Bradley University and Julie Weber from Illinois State University. Still ahead, the deal is all but done. Why President Obama doesn't have to worry about the nuclear agreement with Iran. President Obama now has enough support in the Senate to block a Republican vote disapproving the Iran nuclear deal. At least 34 senators are supporting the measure, enough to sustain a veto. Democratic Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland gave her approval Wednesday. Congressional Republicans are nearly united in opposing it, amid fears it's not strong enough and would eventually let Iran build a nuclear bomb. Two Democratic senators, Chuck Schumer and Bob Menendez, announced they oppose the deal. About 150 more emails from Hillary Clinton's time at the State Department have been retroactively classified. The emails were not marked classified at the time they were sent to Clinton's private server. They were included in a batch of 7,000 pages released by the State Department Monday night. The State Department is under federal court order to release Clinton's emails on a regular basis, usually the end of each month. And for the first time in more than a month, Donald Trump is not leading the field in one of the first four nominating states in the Republican presidential primary. According to a Monmouth University poll, Dr. Ben Carson is at 23%, tied with Trump. Hillary Clinton is still the clear Democratic frontrunner, but a recent poll by the Des Moines Register shows her just 7 points ahead of Bernie Sanders. Clinton has 37% support. Back in May, she was at 57%. That's going to do it for this edition of Central Illinois on the Record. Of course, you can always stay in touch with us using social media. Connect with WMBD and me on Facebook and Twitter. Use the hashtag CIOTR. We'll see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants.